Welcome everybody to CFO Conversations. I'm your host, Paula Kensington, and I have with me today Henrik and Alison Tung, and we're exploring conversations around sustainability as finance professionals. So this conversation is about the opportunities that exist or should exist for CFOs to be able to benchmark, to be able to understand methodologies, to be able to share ideas when it comes to sustainability reporting. And that was really the key driver of having this series, because I love to be able to share and have a conversation with CFOs around the world about the challenges that really matter. And as we said on our previous conversation, sustainability reporting now really does matter, even if you're in a business that on the surface doesn't look like it has a big impact on nature, or nature has a big impact on it, like tech software businesses potentially look like they might not have a huge impact versus some of the energy and engineering and manufacturing. But it's all of our problem now, and so what can we do? We don't have the answers, so let's have a conversation. I think that's a really nice way to start. There's a lot of finance professionals I'm talking to that really don't, they might be isolated, they don't have the time, they don't have the networks to be able to have these conversations. And especially during COVID, where we haven't even had CFO forums or conferences where we might have gone to an all-day conference and one of the topics would have been sustainability reporting for sure, but we're not having those either. So this is a really good way to have the conversation. So what exists? I've got my own thoughts on that, but let me come to you, Alison, first. What have you seen that exists in Europe, or your own investigations that you've been doing?
Yeah, thanks, Paula. A few years ago, I was invited to a workshop through the Chartered Accountants, and one of the speakers there was from Accounting for Sustainability. So that was my first introduction, and that was before COVID. So that got my curiosity sparked into this whole area of sustainability. And so inspired by one of my own team members, actually, I embarked on the A4S program during COVID, and I'm not far off graduating, so I'm still on a learning journey. But it's a global program with participants from all firms around the world, so it's all been run virtually, and so for me that was a way to equip myself with some skills and knowledge, hear from others in small group situations about what this whole thing of sustainability is all about. So that was my sort of first stepping stone.
Yeah, nice. And how long does that kind of take? I mean, given it's digital and you can be a bit more flexible, what's the kind of period of time it's taken?
Yeah, it's over 18 months, 2 years, right. And it requires a lot of investment of your own time, and it's webinars, it's your own work, you have to have the sponsorship of your own CFO. So in my case, that was my global CFO, to put together a plan around how you're going to enact sustainability reporting and change in your own firm. So it's actually quite focused in the sense of some personal responsibility for putting that plan together, and then some objectives alongside of that. So it's quite an investment, as I said, but been well worth it, and I've met some great people all virtually as well.
Yeah, and that's that's back to the how do you surround yourself with people that are on a similar exploration journey. And and I think when we don't have all the answers, we need to surround ourselves with people that are all willing to find and create. I mean, I think we are creating our own answers as we go. There's no textbook. It's a bit like the pandemic, like we're actually creating a new playbook that we didn't have before.
Yeah, that's very true.
I think in my exploration, I've just been doing two things. So I've been doing the ACCA's certificate in sustainability for finance. So again, it's online, and it's really different to A4S because it's expected that you could do it in 6 months at sort of a steady pace learning. I think it was something like £200, so it was very affordable. And I have just blown my mind with everything that's in there, because it's like Pandora's box. You kind of open it and then all of this information is presented to you. And so it can be a bit of a rabbit warren, because then you end up going down different paths and looking at different organizations that you never even knew existed that are into sustainability. So, you know, and I think it's, as you said before, educating yourself, you know, that's a really important first step. I've also been looking at Capital's Coalition. Their course, again, is quite a short course on how do we value nature. And that talks about, you know, all the aspects, as we finance professionals know, in the value chain, but all the things that perhaps we haven't thought of about before, around what, you know, what's not on the balance sheet, what's not in the spreadsheet, what are we not taking into consideration, what's the impact on communities that we're having that, you know, isn't kind of being brought into account. It's yeah, very interesting. And for someone who's worked only in service providers, you know, I've not worked in businesses where we've had a lot of impact on nature on the face of it.
Yeah.
What
That's
about
where,
you, Henrik? What's your...
well, that would be, I have worked in more of businesses that are more manufacturing driven, where there is one obvious link to, you know, how much water you use and how much electricity you use and your emissions and these types of things that have always been important because they also cost money. At least electricity and water, but are becoming more important because you need to, you know, talk about your footprint and what you're doing to be more efficient. So it's always sort of been there, but I think not the whole thing, just in terms of your almost as P&L lines, rather than concepts or frameworks. Lately, I've worked more with, you know, smaller businesses trying to scale up. They probably have less of a focus on this very often because there's too many things to do. And as long as it's not mandated, you know, it's one of the things that would be really nice to do. But as you've discussed, it also takes a little bit of time to figure it out what it is. If you're in a service provider, it's not obvious how you would do it, as if you're in heavy industries.
Yeah, and I think heavy industry and manufacturing, you know, they're on this journey 10 years ago, whereas you know, it feels to me like we're just getting started. It's like, yeah, but you talk to anyone in that industry, and maybe even Alison would agree that conversation kicked off 10 years ago.
Yeah, that's true. I think we've been grappling for a while, even within Arup, about the impact of our projects, like the projects that we design for our clients, and how you measure the emissions impact of perhaps the materials that you're choosing to construct a particular building or other infrastructure. So yeah, it's been around for a while. That's very true. Yeah.
And the point you made, sorry, Henrik, the point you were talking about there about costing money, you know, that historically finance has been driven because it costs money, but now it's going to cost you more than money. It's going to cost you customers, it's going to cost you reputation, and you know, as we said, it's going to cost you investment, because unless you're reporting and care about ESGs and sustainability, then, you know, potentially you won't be invested in, and you won't, and your customers will demand your reporting as well.
Yeah, and I think in the past there's been specific requests or demands from customers in terms of being trademark, being used, you know, what is it called, Rainforest Alliance or these other things that, you know, we prefer that you have these, otherwise the procurement of your customers are, you know, might go elsewhere. But that is also a spot thing. It's one thing, while I think there's more to explore when it comes to this, as you mentioned, in terms of once you dive into it, you realize the full width of things.
Yeah, so hopefully this conversation will give people a few tips, and, you know, and comment. I'd love to be able to respond to people that, you know, have seen things that work, share industry specific, share country specific, you know, frameworks or methodologies, because I think it's, you know, being able to educate ourselves and also support each other as finance professionals. So thank you both for that conversation.
Thank you.